Welcome to the Around the NFL podcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. My name is Dan Hansis. I come to you from a virtual room filled with some heroes. Greg Rosenthal, Mark Sessler. Boys, we're on the TV. Moms are proud.
We're back. I mean, you're not quite back. I don't know where you are right now. Texas?
You don't need to know.
That looks nice there.
You'll never know.
Well, I know where you are. You have to be, Dan, the only football scribe / commentator in America doing a television show from your father-in-law's upstairs playroom. I find that unusual.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty nice. Shuffleboarding. I'm going to get on that in just a little bit because that is fun. I like doing games like that. Mark, I know you hate them. Coming up on today's show,
No.
And by the way, if you don't know us, this is the Around the NFL broadcast. The Around the NFL podcast comes at you 2 times a week right now and then 3 and 4 times a week during the season. That keeps you up to date. Coming up on today's show, we're training for training camp. You see, you get the wordplay there. And also, we will be discussing some candidates that need to make the leap, some players that really need to take the next step in their game. But first, let's do some news. Let's get to it and start with some bad news for the New Orleans Saints, who may be without Michael Thomas, their superstar wide receiver for the beginning of the 2021 season. He underwent ankle surgery in June. It's slow going, the recovery. And now you're dealing with the situation, Greg, an injury, the first sustained week 1 of 2020. Here we go in week 1, 2021. It's still an issue for a Saints team that needs their star.
I mean, there's some indications he could miss a chunk of the season, maybe a month. And I keep thinking, it's like, why do they got to make it hard on my guy, Jameis Winston? I mean, look at the weapons Drew Brees had over the years. Now, in the first month of the season, whether it's Taysom Hill or more likely Jameis Winston, their leading wideouts and tight ends are Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris, and Adam Troutman. It's like, this is not going to be your old Saints offense. It is going to be Jameis or Taysom fighting uphill. I know you want your boy Taysom in there, Mark.
Well, I mean, I love Sean Payton because I think of all the coaches out there, he kind of boldly accepts big challenges, and this quarterback battle is one of them. We knew that was coming, during last season, but now the challenges are mounting. I mean, without Michael Thomas, to your point, step on down little Jordan Humphrey. I mean, there's a lot happening here, and you're right, Greg. I mean, it's a 4-month recovery. It happened in June. He could miss the first month of the year. They open with the Packers, another team in a mystery land right now, but it's a concerning scenario for a team that probably is dealing with more transition than any team in the entire NFC. And if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're loving it.
Yeah, you are. And Greg, do you ever sit back and think you built a career covering the NFL, and so much of it now is tied to Jameis Winston and Teddy Bridgewater having big seasons in 2021. It's all on the line. It's all there.
I have lots of loves out there. Justin Herbert's going to carry me through. And you have to worry about, if you are a Jameis fan like me, what Michael Thomas are you going to get when he comes back? Because he really wasn't Michael Thomas a year ago. They signed the big contract, has the monster 2019. Okay, everything looks good. Last year was hurt the whole time, and it's not like he's a super explosive player to begin with. You do start wondering is there a tipping point where he becomes a little too slow to be as big a difference maker as he used to be?
I mean, you could argue the biggest physical impact he had last year was punching a teammate in practice. I mean, it's been a weird calendar year for Michael Thomas, and it only continues.
It's been very bad. And, the Saints, David Onyemata, their star defensive lineman, he suspended 6 games. That just came out this week. Marcus Lattimore, their stud cornerback, he had an arrest this offseason, and it's unclear what his season looks like in terms of potential punishment. So this is going to be an interesting season for the Saints. And if you're an Alvin Kamara fantasy owner, that's not a bad thing. A lot of more targets, if that's even possible, could be coming his way if Michael Thomas is missing. Moving on, speaking of star wide receivers and questionable futures, well, it's different with Davante Adams of the Packers. He's coming off an absolute stud season. He's healthy. That's all good. Not so good. This from Rap Sheet. The Packers and Davante Adams have broken off talks on a long-term contract extension, and things are not very good. It sounds like things are bumpy between the two sides. And Mark, I guess this is it's all connected. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, we don't know what his future is with the team. And if Davante Adams looks at the Packers' future, it's murky. Why would you want to do a deal with the team right now? But there's probably more to it, and money at the center, of course.
Yeah, and we're a month removed from Derek Carr trying to recruit him to the Raiders next offseason. I mean, look at it. The Packers, to me, they want to do things differently, but this is quite a spicy social experiment that they're at play with at the moment. I mean, are you trying to simply incite like a full-blown violent coup d'etat in the streets of Milwaukee and Green Bay? I mean, how do you not look at Davante Adams and say, we will make you the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL? This is how it happens. He's in that sphere, in that realm, and these guys get paid, and then the next guy gets paid a little bit more. And they look at DeAndre Hopkins' contract and say, we don't agree. We're not going to go there. And I think you're watching a team, come apart at the seams bit by bit.
Woo, coming apart at the seams. I mean, he's got to show up to camp. He's going to show up to camp. They've got the franchise tag, and that's what really Brian Gutekunst, your boy Dan, has in his back pocket. It makes it too easy on these teams because they can just say, whatever, we'll tag you. We'll see where we're at a year from now. It's a little unfair to a guy like Adams, who we know with the cap exploding is going to be the highest paid receiver in the league at some point as long as he stays healthy. And you're putting him in a tough spot because they don't really want to negotiate. They're like, okay, we're done for now. Go away.
Listen, I'm struggling with this. I struggled it on the podcast yesterday. I don't want to be a hot take yacker about this Aaron Rodgers situation, but it's causing a major issue. Aaron Rodgers being super annoying to the Packers right now, because if you think about it, if he takes this extension that was offered at some point this offseason, if the money was fair and everything was fair, the Packers then would have more wiggle room to potentially get things done with Davante Adams, and the team could put their focus on trying to win a Super Bowl, because that's what everyone else is trying to do. Aaron Rodgers, what are you trying to do, bro? What are you trying to do? See, I'm being that guy. I'm being too animated. I'm yelling about Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to be that guy, but he's taken me to the limit.
You can't help it.
Maybe they can only sign one of the two. I mean, that's a possibility as well, and they don't really know how it's going to work. It's a fair point that when they're planning out their financials, like those two contracts are both going to be massive. I don't buy the idea, though, that Davante Adams is somehow pushing this off into the future because he doesn't know if Rodgers is going to be there. I mean, if they gave him the monster contract that would make him the highest paid receiver by far right now, I'm sure he's taking that money.
Well, and he was negotiating during all this Rodgers chaos. I mean, in good faith, and things fell apart. But I can't really, in memory, remember a team that went 13-3 2 years in a row and have had an offseason like this that is so chaotic, and we're days away from Aaron Rodgers not showing up. But like I said on our podcast, like, what would be weirder than him actually showing up after all this? What did all this occur for? These bizarre headlines, the mysterious non-statements, him, playing golf but not playing football. I don't know. The whole thing feels crazy to me.
And Greg, if you're Davante Adams, you're 28 years old, you're at the apex of your powers. Do you want to stay home, get paid a lot either way, with a potential unknown future with Jordan Love, a guy that maybe you saw in practice last year and you don't love, or sign with the highest bidder that has a star quarterback and have a fresh start for the second half of your career? I think it's something to think about.
It's something to think about, but with that tag out there, I'm just taking that short money, that easy guaranteed money right now while I can.
All right. Finally, in the news, the NFL just informed clubs this week via Tom Pelissero that if a game cannot be rescheduled during the 18-week season due in 2021 due to a COVID outbreak among unvaccinated players, the team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with a loss. That is obviously a massive incentive, additional incentive for players to get vaccinated. And yet, Greg, we're seeing it. You're seeing tweets all over the place, tweets that get tweeted, then deleted because an angry agent calls and says, "What are you doing, you fool?" There is a lot in the air right now in the NFL, and it speaks to a larger thing with the country as well, the COVID vaccine and what it means to different people.
Yeah, I think this story, though, in terms of the forfeit has been blown a little out of proportion because the numbers of vaccinated NFL players have skyrocketed in the last month. Like, it was around 50% in late June, and now we're hearing half the teams are over this 85% threshold where they can do whatever they want in practice. And you would think that it's going to get even higher than half of those.
That's not
teams.
A lot, Greg. 16 out of 32 is not very good.
Yeah, but that's also 85%. We were at 0% vaccinated a year ago, and no games got forfeited. I think that's kind of where I'm coming from. That a lot would have to happen for a game to get forfeited.
Well, there are clearly some outliers, and we're seeing it on social media. I would ask this: do you forfeit a Monday Night Football game when ESPN is, putting $100 million into the affair. I'm not sure that's going to happen. But at the same time, it didn't happen last year, so I don't see why it would happen this year. But it's not like the whole league is vaccinated. Not at all.
Guys, my mom has a famous saying, don't spit in the sky. I don't know what's going to happen this year. If it didn't happen last year, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen this year. Who knows? It's crazy. DeAndre Hopkins briefly flirted with retiring before his agent called him.
I don't think that's going to happen.
There's a lot of heat. All right, we're just getting started right here on the broadcast. Coming up next, we train for training camp. See, that's the type of wordplay that made us the best new sports podcast of 2013, according to Apple. Coming up next.
I think we need to freshen up that wordplay.
Need a new award. The biggest season ever starts with NFL training camp, a whole week of first looks and insider access leading up to the first ever Back Together Saturday, fueled by Gatorade. Coverage begins July 26th on NFL Network. You know what? We're ready to go. Check this out.
Hey, wake up! The season's here. It's time to grind.
Oh, already?
Yeah. Yes. Is this a cover 2 concept?
I don't know if it's a cover 2 concept. That's what I pay you for. Kids are so ungrateful. Listen, I don't know why I had a southern accent there, but I'm in Texas right now, so that could explain it. Thank you to all of our children for their unpaid work there. All right, let's get into it. We're training for training camp. What are some big storylines everybody should be ready for? Greg, get us going.
I just want to point out for fans who are ready for football to come back, you are going to get more news in the first week of training camp if you're a junkie like us than you did for the last 4 or 5 months combined. All the teams that tried to hide things all offseason, they got to come with the real next week. It's like the Cowboys showed up. They're already at training camp. Oh, DeMarcus Lawrence. Oh, by the way, he had a back surgery. Oh, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, oh, it's a minor back surgery for one of our best players. Oh, Amari Cooper, the guy who got an ankle surgery back in January we never told you about. He still can't practice for another couple of weeks. So a lot of news if you're paying attention. Position battles get decided, like the Steelers already kind of named their rookie center, Kendrick Green, their starter. It's coming. I know you're a news junkie, Mark. We all were news junkies back in the day as writers.
Well, thank you for the warning. I think everyone appreciates that, Greg.
And thank goodness for this, Greg. You're absolutely right. You're even seeing this week. There's more news this week than we had in a month and a half prior. So we've got a nice little taste this week, and get ready for the explosion. How about you, Mark? What are you looking ahead to as training camp kicks off?
Kind of locked into, this Tua scenario down in Miami. I think number one, like, I'm willing to forgive what was sort of a bland rookie outing. I don't think Chan Gailey ever really trusted Tua. But now you've got Eric Stoodsville and George Godsey as your co-OCs, and Myles Gaskin talked about this as a completely new offense. So you're starting over, and I'd love to see them tailor some of the playbook around him, do a better job of that this year. But remember, this is a Dolphins team that does things really differently. They were vaguely connected to Deshaun Watson, at least from Deshaun Watson's scenario, in a calmer time for Deshaun Watson. This is a team that also has 2 first-round picks, or 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years. They are not afraid to swing for the fences and do strange things. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Tua to not duplicate last year, but to grow and grow noticeably. I mean, they've put more weapons around him. There aren't a lot of excuses in year 2.
I think they'll be in the market for a new quarterback if he really disappoints this year. And maybe that's unfair because last year with the COVID season and he was coming off the serious hip surgery, and just learning the pro game, you should maybe write that off a little bit. But if he struggles in year 2, I think the reason I think that is because, Greg, I think in some ways the Dolphins have expertly rebuilt the organization from being one of the worst teams we've ever seen a couple of years ago in September to getting to the point now where a lot of people think they contend for a playoff spot. But if their quarterback isn't along for the ride right now, if the quarterback is developing slowly, if the quarterback is not on the same page or isn't working as hard as he needs to work, then you're going to say to yourself, okay, we got these other pieces in place, but not the guy at the center. So I think he will be feeling the pressure. We'll find out what he's got.
They're such a strange team because they have so much turnover every year with the coaching staff, with the roster. Every August, July at this time, I'm like, oh, this roster's not really that good. And then they overachieve. I think they've overachieved 2 years in a row. I do know one thing, though. The co-offensive coordinators are on Mark's radar. He is ready to bury the co-offensive coordinator plan in a hurry.
I want to see it. I just want to see it. I mean, it feels to me a bit sorted organizationally, but maybe if they work like an unfunny Laurel and Hardy team and they can be productive, I'm all for it.
I don't understand how that happened. And listen, the inner workings of a football team are way more complicated than most people realize, but you probably should have just made one guy the boss. I don't know. We'll see how it works out. But Chan Gailey, who's in his 47th season as an offensive coordinator with 31 other teams, maybe that wasn't the right guy to pair with a kid like Tua. Maybe you want a young, hungry, or in this case, 2 young, hungry men with him trying to build a career. It will be interesting to follow along. The Dolphins are all over the place right now when I try to think about where they're going to land this season. It's going to be fun to see how it all plays out. I am going to talk about something that's not so fun. Deshaun Watson. It's Deshaun Watson and the great unknown. And we know that Watson has been accused of sexual misconduct by 20 women. And both the NFL and the Houston police are investigating the situation. That's an ongoing situation. But that's it. That's all we know. We know that Watson was not with the team during the OTA portion of the NFL calendar. We know that he wanted to be traded before all this legal mess entered the picture. Everything else is murky, including where the NFL comes down on this. So while the expectation amongst many is that Deshaun Watson will not be playing football this season, we don't have any word one way or the other. And we certainly don't have any clarity on the legal front where his situation sits. And this is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in our league. I mean, this is a super duper star quarterback. What happens to Deshaun Watson? Maybe he just disappears. Maybe that's how the NFL wants to handle this, but we don't know how it's going to play out as we get closer and closer to the new season.
Well, and also that's not their only problem. They have the worst roster in the league.
Yeah, but that is
Tyrod Taylor.
That's all football stuff. I mean, I feel like this is so much bigger than just the Texans might stink this year.
No, it is. I mean, look, a year ago, if you were to say all this was going to happen, it would have been completely bizarre to ponder. I mean, I'm with you.
A lot of people have conflated the trade request, which made Deshaun Watson the biggest story in the NFL before all this Aaron Rodgers stuff popped up, with the legal problems. And they're two totally separate issues, and yet, of course, they impact one another. I think once his legal situation, if his legal situation ever gets sorted out with some clarity between, the legal process, his lawyers, and then, of course, the NFL and how they'll punish him, I think there will be a market for him. But until that happens, it's not going on the NFL's timeline, and yet the NFL is going to have to make a decision, because right now they have to make a decision whether the Texans have to pay him or not. Lawyers are going to get involved. Money is going to get involved. And really the deadline for the NFL to do something about it is coming up with the start of training camp.
Yes, and the American justice system does not care that week 1 is coming up in the early days of September. So if this is a situation where his legal situation continues to play out, I think the most likely situation is we don't see Deshaun Watson, but we don't know. All right, we're going to get back to training for training camp in a little bit, but coming up next, who needs to make the leap in 2021? That's one guy, Daniel Jones. That's a first-round pick. The Giants need that guy to do something. Who else? That's coming up next on the broadcast.
Breakout players: David Montgomery,
Daniel Jones,
Jerry Jeudy,
Quinnen Williams
is going to have a huge breakout season.
Into the end zone! Touchdown Bears!
Getting this young man going is going to be huge for the Bears to take this division.
This guy is a leader. This is a guy that when he steps in the huddle, the guys respond to. Offensively and defensively, he is tough.
with the explosiveness that he has and the strength and the length and all the stuff that he's got. He checks every box. Very excited about Quinnen.
You better look to Jerry Jeudy and get him the football.
And caught. Jerry Jeudy backs into the end zone. Touchdown, Denver.
It's time for Fighting Spirit, presented by the United States Marine Corps. Did you notice in that little montage that they had to cut Daniel Jones's 80-yard run before he fell to the turf there? That's a tough sitch. And that kind of sums up the Daniel Jones experience. We'll get to him in a minute. But the players, we do something on the podcast and the written form on .com, players who will make the leap. That's not really what this is. This is players who need to make the leap to help their teams. Mark, give us an example.
Well, it shouldn't be a total shocker. I mean, the promo kind of mentioned this guy, but Jerry Jeudy is my pick. I think with Jerry Jeudy, he came into the league with some drop issues, and drops were a big part of his issues a year ago. I mean, he led the league in them. But I would also note that Amari Cooper had 18 drops as a rookie. Here's the other thing about Jerry Jeudy. I think whenever you watched him, it kind of reminded me of Justin Herbert at quarterback. When you watch Jerry Jeudy play, there's certain things he does, the way he runs routes, some of his just incredible athleticism. You can just see it. You can see a star player. So if he can cut down some of the mistakes, he can be a huge part of a Denver offense that gets Cortland Sutton back as well. I think that will help. You're going to have your second cornerback or your third on Jerry Jeudy, which should help him out a lot. I just think this is a player with an unknown, incredibly potentially high ceiling, who is so fun to watch, so electric, in a Denver offense that is totally set to go outside of questions at the quarterback position.
Yeah, he just moves different. I mean, the only way you drop all those passes if you're open all the time. Like, when did 850 yards from a rookie catching passes from Drew Lock throwing it into the third row of the stands, count as a bad season? I mean, if you get Teddy Bridgewater in there, maybe it's a little more accurate. Maybe Drew Lock plays better, but I'm with you. Like, Jeudy, you can just see he's a star. I have no question.
I mean, we could do a little better than Teddy Bridgewater too, but that's beside the point. I would like to see a talent of Jerry Judy's level with a legitimate starting quarterback. To you, Greg.
He'll put it on him. I didn't know we switched it from has to make the leap to making the leap. I've got making the leap candidates coming out on Monday on NFL.com.
We made it pretty clear.
I got T. Higgins right there. And he is a great looking second-year receiver, 900-plus yards as a rookie, despite catching passes from Brandon Allen and Ryan Finley for half the season. There aren't many guys that can go deep down the field, catch passes like that on the boundary, jump balls, but he also plays in the slot quite a bit, can make plays after the catch. Like, to me, he has it all. Wouldn't be surprised if he outgains Jamar Chase, just because he's a second-year player. Jamar Chase is a rookie, and I think T. Higgins is explosive. I think they're going to be 1-1A, and they're going to give the Browns a lot of problems over the years.
It's a weird scenario in Cincinnati where you're saying they maybe have too many good wide receivers. It's the best wide receiver group potentially in the AFC, if not the AFC North. And, I mean, I'm with you. I think he had a sensational rookie year. There's no reason. They also talked about him becoming stronger this offseason, that he's been totally plugged in. The coaches have been – it's the one player they picked out to rave over. Everything you read about the Bengals, he has been raved over 100 times. So I really think that the year two should be excellent.
Yeah, well, why don't you build around him as a potential number one wide receiver and go take the once-in-a-decade tackle that was in the draft when you were picking in the first round? Come on, Bengals. Make the right decisions. Daniel Jones. I don't know if the Giants made the right decision when they took Daniel Jones early in the first round 3 seasons ago or 2 seasons ago. And now as Daniel Jones enters his third year, they absolutely need this quarterback to take the next step. And they're trying to help him out. They really are. His passer rating fell off, by the way, from his rookie season. That should not happen in year 2. He only had 11 touchdown passes in 14 starts. He's 8-18 as a starter. That's all the bad stuff. And he's been struggled to stay healthy. The good news, according to Next Gen Stats, he's the number 1 quarterback in the league last season in pass attempts of 20 or more yards. I did not know that. He did drop his interceptions and fumbles, a major problem as a rookie, by a third. And of course, he has upgraded talent around him with Kenny Golladay, big pickup in free agency, Kadarius Toney, first-round pick, Saquon Barkley, hopefully back in the mix. And this is important for Mr. Jones. Mike Glennon is his backup. So there's no push behind him to lose his job. It's all there for Daniel Jones. Can he make it happen? Because if he does, I think the Giants win that division.
You're not bringing back Counting Crows, though. No matter.
They're here. They never left, Rosenthal.
I accept it.
They
never left.
They're good.
All right, one more time, real quick. Go around the horn.
All right.
I'll go Adam Troutman. Or I'll go Adam Troutman down in New Orleans. I mean, I think we've already talked about what's going on with Michael Thomas. I mean, you lost Jared Cook. Josh Hill retired. They have basically said, you are our number 1 tight end with a wide open door, no one in your way. He is, I understand right now, fantasy heads are going nuts over him, over the potential, but we need to see it. I mean, he really didn't make a big impact last year. They kind of, I think, held his hand during a COVID-ridden season, but everything changes now. He absolutely is your tight end 1. He should get a ton of end zone targets. I mean, they need him to be a big player out of the gate.
Do they need Adam Troutman to, I don't know.
They might right now. He might be their number 1 receiver.
Or you're saying Jameis Winston has no tight end. I think this is a big tight end offense. If you look over the past 5 seasons, he has to thrive.
they lost their last top two guys too. Josh Hill's gone. Jared Cook is gone. I'm going to go with a cornerback who a lot of people picked on the Atlanta Falcons. Remember when they took A.J. Terrell over C.D. Lamb and all the draft nicks were like, what a dumb move. What a bunch of idiots. And like no one ever comes back and apologizes. A.J. Terrell was great. I mean, I think he was one of the best rookie cornerbacks in the entire NFL. Was a good tackler. I mean, C.D. Lamb's fine too, but this was on a bad defense, and you know who showed up every week? A.J. Terrell. He's got Dean Pease now coaching him up. That should help because he was in a tough spot with a lot of poor teammates, but Terrell stood out last year.
I like, remember in Jerry Maguire where Tom Cruise ruined his career by writing the mission statement about how agents should handle the industry. It's not about more, it's about being better. Greg's going to do the same thing. He's going to say, we need to apologize for wrong takes, and he'll be drummed out of this whole game. Finally. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. How about that? Make the leap, Clyde. Listen, when you're a first-round pick in our league in this century at running back, you need to have a bigger impact than Edwards-Helaire had in year one. He was fine, but he wasn't the guy we thought he would be. And now he has a better offensive line. I think the Chiefs' offensive line unquestionably should be better. And he's got a full off season, and you got to factor that stuff in. If he actually does become the guy they thought they were getting, look out. The Chiefs become that high-powered ultra offense that we thought they would be when he was a rookie. All right. That was good. Good stuff. Now, coming up next.
Pretty good.
All right. B-. Coming up next, we're back to training for training camp. And we're going to focus on some big-time rookie QB battles. Intrigue galore. Up next on the broadcast. We are just hours away from NFL Network taking you back inside training camp live. It all starts this Monday and leads up to the first ever Back Together Saturday, fueled by Gatorade. Training camp is back on NFL Network. You know what else is back? Training for Training Camp, Part 2. Rosie Boy, get us going.
Rosie, we need to get back together. You know, you're in Texas. Come home, Dan. You know, we need to get in the studio.
Are you going to hug me? When you see me, will you hug me? Because you're not big on touch.
I'm not big on human connection. I am big on guys getting paid, but like not making too much drama about it, that's Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson right now. I think that's something to watch out for in the next couple of weeks. I think both these guys are going to get their major contracts. Lamar Jackson is getting involved in the negotiations, which is odd, but he sounded confident. The Ravens sounded confident. They clearly want to pay Lamar, and so it's probably going to happen. And then Baker Mayfield has been so chill about it, and the Browns have made it pretty clear they're not worried about Carson Wentz and Jared Goff getting paid a year too early. I think it's all going to happen. I think it's all going to happen without a lot of drama. Might be next week, might be the middle of August, but either way, it's going to happen.
I mean, they have talked about the Browns talking about Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward as guys that they're targeting maybe before Baker, but I'd be a little surprised if it happened that soon. I think the Browns could take a longer look at Baker if they wanted to.
Hey, pay Lamar. That's an MVP. Baker, listen, if Baker's happy in Cleveland, and he is, and Cleveland likes Baker, which they do, and the fans seem to like Baker, I know Sessler does, then I guess make a deal. But it's just one of those things where I wonder, when you look a year from now, if they did do a deal, is everyone happy? Maybe they will be, maybe they won't. But why not wait?
You could wait till October. You could do it at week 5. Do a little mid-season.
There's no reason to rush.
Sometimes.
All right, Mark, how about you?
Well, I am focused on this West Coast scenario, San Francisco 49ers, Trey Lance, Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G, number one, is set up to have a great season. This team last year had 2 games where the starting quarterback, tight end, and first 2 wide receivers even played together. We know the injuries for years have been an issue. But Trey Lance, to me, I did a Daniel Jeremiah thing on Thursday and spent time watching a ton of his college film. He is so spicy, he is so tantalizing that I cannot imagine that Kyle Shanahan is not in some bunker somewhere laughing his head off, maniacally thinking about the sub packages he will create right away. I mean, even if Jimmy G is the starter, Trey Lance can do things. He has the same exact build as Colin Kaepernick, same height. He's a pound heavier, and he runs with power. He runs with strength. He can do things and add things to this offense that really Kyle Shanahan has never really had outside of a little bit of a dosage of RG3 in that rookie year.
You know, the great thing, Greg, about Mark is he'll do the thing where he disappears for a while and vacations and maybe a sick day, and he'll just be gone for a bit. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he's working harder than anybody in the industry. And it's like he's showing his work.
Yeah, he's showing his work. He's telling us about his work. He's watching NFL Network press conferences all day. When he comes back, he means it. You said, though, Mark, that Jimmy Garoppolo is set up for success. I mean, I think he's set up to get traded in mid-August. I think he's set up to not play due to no fault of his own. Because if Trey Lance is great in the next 3 weeks, I think he's starting week 1, and I think he's lighting up the skies.
Oh, the best case scenario is what Mark laid out there, that Garoppolo, first of all, he's got to stay healthy, and that's been a major problem in his career more than anything else. He can't stay on the field. But imagine Jimmy G stays on the field, has a great season for a really good Niners team. He's still not the future, but all of a sudden his trade value is resurrected, and maybe you turn Garoppolo into a high draft pick and you move forward with a kid you love in Trey Lance. That's the brightest timeline for the Niners.
I'm with you because I think number one is you need an inciting incident. You need a team to lose their quarterback for Jimmy G to become trade bait in a way that the Niners like. Why not have him have a great couple of months, get Trey Lance ready because he is a bit raw, and then before the trade deadline, you do what Jimmy G happened in New England, trade deadline trade, bang out there, get a nice pick in return.
Something feels moving on. See, we're all a little rusty. You got to transition, old Zeuser, to go to the next topic. There's something to me a little bit off about the Chicago Bears and New England Patriots quarterback situations, because everything we're hearing is that Mac Jones is looking great in camp and he might take the job from Cam Newton as soon as week 1. And then in Chicago, we're hearing, listen, Justin Fields is the future for the Bears, but Andy Dalton, he is their guy and he will be their guy. And they're saying it as much. I think it should be flipped. I think Cam Newton, Bill obviously loves Cam Newton. He likes what Cam brings to the table as a competitor, as a worker. And I think he's a guy that you can go into a new season with him having another year with the offense and getting comfortable in New England. And you start the season with Cam. That makes sense to me. And then you bring in Mac Jones if you need a little juice or Cam gets hurt or if he's not playing well. And in Chicago, it makes zero sense to me if Andy Dalton is the starting quarterback week 1 for manifold reasons. But the biggest one of all is that the head coach and the GM are fighting for their lives in Chicago. And the quicker you get this guy that can save your butt in the lineup, the better it is for your own future. And that's why I think there's more to the story than we've been told so far.
I could see that changing in Chicago, but here would be my one thing. What are you telling the rest of your locker room if Justin Fields totally does a stellar, beautiful job during the preseason. Andy Dalton does Andy Dalton things, and then Andy Dalton is starting week 1. Very confusing.
It's predicated on Fields looking good, of course.
I think Bears ownership, heck, maybe even our boss, Roger Goodell, they should just put their arm around, Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, the GM, be like, you really want to throw Dalton out there week 1? The opening of the new stadium in LA with fans in it, Sunday Night Football, let's just, for the good of the league, put Justin Fields out there, shall we?
Are you insinuating the possibility that Matt Nagy wakes up with a bear head underneath his sheets one morning and he screams out?
We've seen Dalton in prime time. Usually it's on Thursday Night Football against the Jaguars in week 4. Let's not have the opening Sunday night game with them. Come on.
Are we at a place where people don't get a Godfather reference anymore? I don't know.
I enjoyed it.
Sand through the hourglass, my friends.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next. Godfather Part 2. Plug in.
Got it.
We got
it. What do you want, a standing ovation or something?
Yes, players who have career years or else. A little cut into our podcast coming up next. If you're new to us here on NFL Network, Around the NFL is also a podcast. Come on, plug in. Scan that QR code with your cell phone camera, and you can download our latest episode where we discuss players who will have a career year, or else it could cost us our lives. It's like an M. Night Shyamalan thriller. Check this out.
All right, I'm going to go with a player who I think is an ultra talent, but has missed 21 games over the last 2 seasons.
Risky, because an injury pretty much ends your life here.
Well, that's true. What we've seen of this player, though, suggests that he could be the best in the league, and that is Derwin James. And here's what I like about Derwin James this season. It is Brandon Staley. And, I was watching the Flying Coach podcast with Peter Schrager, and he had Mike Tomlin on. And Mike Tomlin said, when you're a coach, it's one thing to take, C players and turn them into B players. Is this what we're doing with this?
The guy's missed 27 of his last 32 games, but keep going, Mark.
Well, I would say this though. If his rookie year alone, people were comparing him to some of the great defensive backs of all time. And if he does,
but that's a reason not to pick him for this exercise, because he was a first-team All-Pro. That is the bar. He has to have his best season ever.
He's got to beat that rookie year.
Let me finish my point here, and I will explain, okay? What Tomlin said, though, the key to really becoming a next-level coach is keeping your A players at A level or better. And I really think if you look at what Brandon Staley did with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey a year ago, it got him a job because of what he did. I mean, the whole league by the end of the year realized this is a defensive wizard. So I think a Derwin James paired with Brandon Staley in that defense, and you go back to what Derwin James, the way he was creatively used in that first Lamar Jackson playoff game where the Ravens lost to the Chargers, there are just signposts that tell me is not only going to be that player, but that player plus more. I think he's probably super motivated to come back. They picked up his fifth-year option, which says a lot to me. I cannot wait to see. You know that I'm high on Brandon Staley. The pairing of Staley and Derwin James is going to create, I think, one of the better stories of the league. And there'll be no looking back to the rookie season saying he wasn't who he was as a rookie. It'll be paired with the fact that he came back from what he's come back with, the way he's used. Here, it's going to happen to me. It's going to happen. I promise you right now.
Are you a kind of a casket guy or more like a urn guy?
No, I would not want to be put below the ground.
I took it more like trying to be safe here. So I was
life and death.
If we can't, yeah, it's life and death. If we can't do second-year players, I'll go third because that's less years to try to improve upon. And I'm going to go Deontay Johnson of the Steelers, who I've always loved. And everyone always talks about his drops. He almost got benched last year because of his drops. It's like, that's like T.O. Forever they talked about T.O.'s drops. Like, to drop that many passes, you got to be open all the time. And Deontay Johnson is open all the time. He's a favorite of our friend Matt Harmon in reception perception. I just love watching him after the catch, before the catch. He's going to be there. And his high right now is 900 yards last year. And he was a guy who, when it's going, he gets 10, 15, 20 targets. I like Chase Claypool a lot, but I think Johnson is the number one. I think they'll throw him a ton of passes. I feel like he clears that bar, and he clears it by enough where this doesn't feel like I'm trying to cheat. You know, he goes 1,300 yards, and he's like the clear one and has a monster year.
I have a question, though. Specifically with this exercise, Greg is correct. I think he can surpass the yardage, what was like 923. He had 88 catches.
Sure, he's got to pass everything. He's got to have a better year.
If he had 87, Greg is off the earth.
I mean, if he goes 87 for 1250, you're taking me out.
Mark. The other two guys we're at the gates, St. Peter, and we decide. Only it's not heaven or hell. It's just you live or die. It's a little bit of a labored metaphor, but it's in that realm. So we'll decide after the season. We'll circle back. So I think you're both done for based on your first two picks. Mark, you really shot for the stars, and Greg, I was kind of with you, and then Greg made the correct point about how truly great Derwin James was as a rookie. So you have to get past that bar. And then Greg, I think there's so many reasons why the Steelers' passing attack.
Well, it's got to be worse than a year ago. Why?
It could be, absolutely could be. But let me give you one, Greg. Damian Harris, your boy, third year. Gotcha. Wasn't used a lot as a rookie in New England.
He didn't even play as a rookie. He was hurt.
This is safe, but okay.
Of course it is. My life's on the line.
Yeah, that's fair.
Third year. Great stat from PFF. The three highest graded running backs, according to that analytics site. Number one, Derrick Henry. He better be. Number two, ahead of Dalvin Cook, Damian Harris. And you know what? I get it, because the whole thing with PFF is studying every snap. And Damian Harris is one of those guys that passes the sniff test. You watch him, you're like, this guy's just better than a lot of running backs. And he hasn't had that true breakthrough season. But if you watch last season, his ability to run through tacklers, just be someone that you don't want to have to deal with once he hits the hole, it was all there. And he got beat up last year. I think he had an injury that slowed him.
He missed 6 games last year. Yeah, barely didn't play at all as a rookie because of injury, basically.
Right. So that is my risk really more than anything. But I think he's the clear number one guy in a New England offense that is really trying to piece some things together right now with Cam Newton still there and now Mac Jones in the mix. You get the idea this is going to be a run-heavy offense with a guy, Harris, that Belichick, I think he trusts him. He says, I'm going to give you the rock, give you the chance to be that dude. And I could see a 1,300-yard season coming out of it. A Corey Dillon-esque season for Damian Harris in year 3. And my life's on the line, and I feel decent about it.
Coming up next, weekend vibes, including Mike McCarthy. He's got a new energy, and it's scintillating. Up next on the broadcast. Hey, shout out to the Patriots and owner Robert Kraft as they donated the team's charter plane to the Boston Renegades. That team plays in the Women's Football Alliance and is off to Canton, where they will play for a third straight title this weekend. If the Renegades win, it would also equal the Patriots with their 6th overall league title. Ooh. And let it be stated, I despise all Boston teams. I am rooting for the Minnesota Vixen, their opponent. But good work, Kraft family. Oh, Weekend vibes, Mark.
All right, well, you know that I am not a huge baseball fan. I feel like every regular season game feels like it goes on for like 1,000 generations, please. But you guys are baseball heads, and it is on my radar, and I'm interested to find out what you think about the Cleveland Guardians, their new name. Give me your take, Greg, in a couple words.
Ooh, that people will get used to it. It's like every name sounds a little silly at first. Like if a team was called the Yankees out of nowhere, that would sound silly too.
No, it wouldn't. It would sound awesome. I don't know about the logo. I would have gone with the Cleveland Spiders. That was a team late in the 19th century. That was the Cleveland baseball team. But whatever. Good luck to the Guardians. Greg.
All right, I want to give a shout out to a podcast I recently listened to. When we were doing these last thoughts before it was called Weekend Vibes, our friend Chris Wesseling shouted out this podcast. It was last May, and Wes, he did not self-promote very often, and I think he was shouting it out because he thought it was really good. And I listened to it recently at the request or at the suggestion of Lakeisha, his wife, and it was really awesome. It was reflective. He was really at peace, and it was great to hear our friend Chris's voice. So if you miss him too, I think it'd be well worth listening to for our viewers out there.
Wow. Great job by Mitch. And that's going to be a tough listen. Hearing Wes's voice since we've lost him is very difficult, but sounds like something that I will need to check out. Finally, Mike McCarthy. A lot of people sometimes think Mike McCarthy's best days are already behind him. I say no, because I saw him in his press conference this week with the Cowboys, and he's got a whole new vibe to him, a big bad daddy vibe. He's got a George Michael, I will be your father figure vibe. And I just want to say, Mike, you got a future ahead of you, and you look awesome. Who disagrees?
This is such a projection. This is the classic.
It really is.
Yeah, Dan Big Daddy vibe projection. I don't know. He's somehow seen himself as a future daddy. McCarthy daddy. I don't know.
I mean, I would say this. He's not impressive enough for Jerry Jones to allow him to say more than about 4 words during that press conference. So,
I will be your father figure, he says to the rest of the Cowboys. I'm in on the Big Bad Daddy. Thanks for watching. We'll be back in a week. Enjoy the beginning of training camp. We will. I will.